Something feels off. Have you noticed? The world is shifting, the tension is rising, wars breaking out, economies collapsing, natural disasters hitting harder than ever. It's like we're watching history speed up, hurtling towards something we can't quite see. For centuries, people have obsessed over the end of days. Nostradamus left behind cryptic messages that some say point directly to 2025. The Bible warns of wars, famine, deception, even the rise of a world leader who will change everything. But what if this isn't just ancient speculation? What if the signs are happening right now? What you're about to hear might shake you. It might change the way you see the world. The question is, are you ready for the truth? Because once you see it, there's no going back. The human fascination with the end of times. From the moment humans could look up at the sky and wonder, we've been obsessed with the end. The idea that one day everything we know could vanish, whether in fire, flood, or some catastrophic event, has haunted every civilization. Ancient prophets, philosophers, and mystics have all tried to decipher when and how it will happen. But why? Why are we so drawn to the idea of the world's final chapter? Maybe it's because deep down, we know time isn't infinite. We know there will be an end. The only question is, when? The Bible has been one of the most referenced texts when it comes to apocalyptic prophecy. From the book of Daniel to Revelation, Scripture lays out visions of war, famine, and a global deception that will lead millions astray. And then, of course, there's Jesus himself warning of wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes in strange places, and nations rising against nations, Matthew 24, 6-7. Does that sound eerily familiar? It should. Look around. The world is shifting, and the signs are aligning in ways we can't ignore. But the Bible isn't the only source fueling this fear, or perhaps this curiosity. Nostradamus, the 16th century French mystic, left behind cryptic verses that many claim predict world-shaking events. His prophecies, often vague and open to interpretation, have eerily lined up with past disasters. And now, some believe his writings point directly to 2025. Could he have foreseen the collapse of economies, a world war, a figure rising to power that will change the course of history forever? Prophecy isn't just about fear, it's about preparation. If the world as we know it were to end, what would truly matter? Money, success, a comfortable life, or something deeper, something eternal? That's where faith steps in, because no matter how many predictions surface, one truth remains: God holds time in his hands. And those who walk with him don't need to fear the unknown. But let's be honest, this kind of talk makes people uncomfortable. Some dismiss it as religious fanaticism, while others obsess over every sign, convinced that doomsday is tomorrow. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Maybe prophecy isn't meant to make us panic, but to wake us up, to remind us that the world is fragile and that our time here is limited. So let me ask you, have you ever felt like something bigger is happening? Like the world is shifting towards something inevitable? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because trust me, you're not alone in wondering. And if you think this is all just superstition, buckle up, because when we dig into what Nostradamus actually said about 2025, things get a whole lot stranger. Nostradamus's prophecies for 2025. What did he really say? Nostradamus, a name that sends chills down the spine of those who have studied his cryptic quatrains. For centuries, people have analyzed his writings, convinced that hidden in his words are glimpses of the future. Some claim he predicted the rise of Hitler, the 9/11 attacks, and even past economic crashes. But what about 2025? What did he actually say? And more importantly, how much of it is coming true right now? Among his most debated verses, one passage stands out: "The great war will begin when the lights go out. The earth will tremble, and the great city shall fall." A vague warning? Maybe. But let's think about it. Global tensions have never been this high. conflicts in the East, economic instability, and whispers of a worldwide financial collapse. What if the lights going out refers to a cyber attack, a technological shutdown that cripples economies overnight? If Nostradamus was right, we may be closer to the edge than we think. And then there's his prediction about a powerful leader rising in the midst of chaos. His writings describe a third Antichrist, someone who will deceive the masses, promise peace, and then unleash destruction. Sound familiar? Because the Bible warns of the same thing. Revelation 13 speaks of a figure who will control commerce, influence nations, and lead people away from the truth. Are we about to witness the fulfillment of both biblical and Nostradamus' prophecies at the same time? Of course, skeptics argue that Nostradamus' writings are too vague to be taken seriously, that his words can be twisted to fit any event. But here's the thing. How many coincidences does it take before they stop being coincidences? How many times can we ignore the patterns before we're forced to ask, what if it's real? Look at the state of the world. Financial systems on the verge of collapse, nations preparing for war, artificial intelligence advancing at an unsettling pace. Nostradamus spoke of a world controlled by unseen forces, where decisions are no longer made by humans, but by systems too complex to understand. Could he have been describing the rise of AI, digital currencies, and a level of surveillance we've never seen before? The uncomfortable truth is this. Whether you believe in Nostradamus or not, something is coming, and people feel it. Anxiety is rising, uncertainty is everywhere, and the world is desperately searching for answers. But here's the good news. No prophecy, no warning, no global event is greater than God's plan. The Bible is clear. Those who trust in Christ have nothing to fear. So the question isn't just, what did Nostradamus predict? The real question is, what will you do if he was right? What do you think? Are Nostradamus' warnings just paranoia, or do they hold truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is just getting started. And if you think the Bible has nothing to say about all this, just wait until we dive into its prophecies. What's written in Scripture might shock you more than anything Nostradamus ever predicted. Biblical prophecies about the end times. What does the Bible reveal? For centuries, people have turned to the Bible for answers about the end of days. Unlike Nostradamus' cryptic and often ambiguous predictions, Scripture lays out a clear, undeniable blueprint of what's to come. It speaks of wars, famine, economic collapse, deception on a global scale, and a world leader who will rise promising peace, only to bring destruction. But does any of this point to 2025? Could we already be in the early stages of something much bigger than we realize? Jesus himself gave us a warning in Matthew 24:6-8, saying, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains." Now look at the world today. Russia, Ukraine, the Middle East, China and Taiwan. Economies crumbling, food shortages becoming more frequent, and earthquakes striking in places where they never used to. Coincidence? Or the birth pains Jesus warned about? And then there's the book of Revelation, the most detailed account of what's coming. It describes a future where a one-world government takes control, a leader emerges who deceives the nations, and a financial system is put in place where no one can buy or sell without a specific mark. Revelation 13:16-17. Now think about how digital currencies, AI and global surveillance are advancing. Are we watching the infrastructure for this prophecy being built right before our eyes? One of the most chilling prophecies comes from 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4, which describes the coming of the Antichrist. "Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. This is no fairy tale. This is Scripture warning us that deception will come and many will fall for it. Some argue that these prophecies have been misinterpreted, that they're symbolic rather than literal. But let me ask you this. If the Bible has been right about so much already, why wouldn't we take these warnings seriously? The fall of nations, the moral decay of societies, the rise of technology that could control economies, all of it was foretold thousands of years ago, and yet here we are, watching it unfold. But here's where the Bible differs from Nostradamus. It doesn't just predict disaster, it offers a way out. Through faith, through preparation, through an unshakable connection with God. The message isn't fear the future. The message is be ready, because the world might be falling apart, but God's plan is never out of control. So what do you think? Are these biblical prophecies lining up with our reality, or are we just seeing patterns where there aren't any? Let me know in the comments below, because trust me, what comes next in these prophecies will make everything we just discussed look like the calm before the storm. Signs in the sky and on earth. What's happening right now? Have you noticed how the world feels different lately? Like something is shifting in a way we can't quite explain. It's not just wars and economies crashing. There's something happening in the very fabric of nature. Earthquakes, extreme weather, rare celestial events. The Bible warns of these signs, and even Nostradamus spoke of the heavens shaking before great calamities. Are we witnessing prophecy unfolding before our eyes? Luke 21:11 gives us a chilling preview of the end times. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. Sound familiar? Because in just the last few years, we've seen an explosion of natural disasters at a scale and frequency that scientists struggle to explain. Earthquakes in places that have never had them, hurricanes gaining strength overnight, unprecedented wildfires consuming entire regions. Could this be what Jesus warned about? Then there are the celestial signs. The Bible speaks of the moon turning to blood, stars falling, and darkness covering the earth before the great and terrible day of the Lord, Joel 2:31. And here's where it gets eerie. 2025 is set to witness rare astronomical events, including eclipses and planetary alignments that some believe signal something far greater than just a scientific phenomenon. Nostradamus too wrote about a time when the sky would be lit ablaze and the sun would darken as the world trembles. A poetic metaphor or something literal? And what about disease? Pandemics have always been a part of history, but what we saw in recent years was different. The level of control, fear, and chaos that followed felt like a test. Like a foreshadowing of a world where governments dictate who can move, who can buy, and who must submit. The Bible warns that pestilence will come, and it won't just bring sickness, it will bring control, economic turmoil, and a shift in global power. And if the last few years were just a warm-up, what's coming next? But let's not forget what Jesus said. When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Luke 21:28. These signs are not meant to terrify us. They are meant to prepare us. To remind us that no matter how dark things get, there is a plan, a purpose, and a promise beyond this world. So let me ask you, have you noticed these signs? Do you feel like the world is shifting in a way we can't ignore? If you do, you're not alone. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because the next topic will shake you even more. If these signs are just the beginning, then we have to ask, is a total global collapse right around the corner? Is global collapse near? The perspective of Nostradamus and the Bible. Let's be real, something is coming. You can feel it, right? The tension in the air, the unease in global markets, the sense that we're on the edge of something catastrophic. Financial experts warn that we're on the brink of an economic collapse, unlike anything we've seen before. But here's the thing, It's not just economists saying this. Nostradamus predicted a time when wealth would vanish overnight, and the Bible has been warning about this for thousands of years. Could we be heading straight into the storm? Nostradamus's prophecies speak of a great financial disaster, a sudden collapse that leaves the world in ruin. One of his quatrains states, "The rich shall die many times over, their wealth consumed like smoke in the wind." Chilling, isn't it? And now in 2025, inflation is skyrocketing, debt is spiraling out of control, and governments are scrambling to hold the system together. What happens when it finally breaks? The Bible doesn't just warn about a financial collapse, it describes a world where the economy is no longer in our hands. Revelation 6:5-6 speaks of a time when basic necessities will become unaffordable. A quart of wheat for a day's wages and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages, but do not damage the oil and the wine. In other words, food will be scarce, money will lose its value, and only the elite will thrive. Sound familiar? Because we're watching it unfold. And let's talk about control. The Bible predicts that in the final days, a system will emerge where no one can buy or sell unless they submit to it. Revelation 13:16-17. Now look at today's world. Digital currencies, social credit systems, AI-driven surveillance. The infrastructure for this prophecy is already being put in place. Nostradamus hinted at a future where the people shall trade with no coin but with permission, a hauntingly accurate description of where we're headed. This isn't just about money, it's about power. The World Economic Forum, global banking elites, and major corporations are shifting toward a centralized system where control over finances means control over lives. Entrepreneurship, restricted, investments, manipulated personal wealth, tracked. It's no longer just about making money or finding ways to generate passive income. It's about whether or not you'll even have the right to participate in the economy. So where does this leave us? The Bible makes one thing clear: God provides even in the darkest times. Matthew 6:26 reminds us, "Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? No matter how unstable the world becomes, those who trust in God will always have what they need." But let's be real. How do you prepare for what's coming? Because if the world economy collapses, if money becomes worthless overnight, if control replaces freedom, what's your plan? Let's talk about it in the comments. And get ready, because what comes next is even more terrifying. Nostradamus and the Bible both speak of a figure who will rise from this chaos, a leader who will deceive millions. Could 2025 be the year the Antichrist emerges? The Antichrist enigma. Will he rise in 2025? Throughout history, people have speculated about the arrival of a powerful leader who will change the world, but not for the better. Nostradamus wrote about a third Antichrist, a man of deception who would rise in a time of crisis, promising salvation while secretly bringing destruction. The Bible, however, is even more explicit. It warns of a global ruler who will unite nations, establish a false peace, and lead millions astray. Could 2025 be the year we see his emergence? The Apostle Paul's warning in 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4 describes this figure clearly. The man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. This is not just a political leader, it's someone who will command worship, someone who will claim divine authority. And looking at how world leaders, influencers, and even AI are being elevated to near messianic status, the groundwork for this deception is already being laid. Nostradamus hinted at a charismatic, persuasive leader who would emerge during a time of global instability. He described him as a wolf in sheep's clothing, someone who offers solutions but has a hidden, sinister agenda. The book of Revelation echoes this warning, calling him the beast, a ruler who will captivate the world with promises of peace, but will ultimately bring chaos and suffering. Revelation 13:1-8. Look at the world today. Governments are desperate for control, people are longing for stability, and society is increasingly willing to trade freedom for security. It's the perfect setup for someone to step in and say, "I have the answer." But here's where it gets even more unsettling. With the rise of AI and deepfake technology, deception has reached a new level. Imagine a world where people no longer question what they see, where a digital leader, enhanced by artificial intelligence, could sway entire populations with words that feel divine, movements that feel revolutionary, and solutions that seem undeniable. Could the Antichrist not just be a person, but something more? A fusion of technology, power, and deception unlike anything the world has ever seen. We're already seeing the shift in mindset. People are more disconnected from faith than ever before. Morality is being redefined. What was once considered evil is now praised, and what was once sacred is now ridiculed. The Bible warns that before the Antichrist comes, there will be a great falling away, a rejection of truth, a world that no longer sees the need for God. 2 Timothy 3:1-5. And look around, it's happening. So the question is, are we watching the rise of this figure right now? Could 2025 be the year where his influence becomes undeniable? We don't know the exact moment, but one thing is certain: the stage is set. The world is desperate for a leader, and history has shown that desperate times always bring dangerous solutions. So, what do you think? Are we at the doorstep of this prophecy? Have you noticed how people are being conditioned to accept whatever they're told? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is far from over. The Bible describes something even more alarming: a system that will control who can buy, who can sell, and who will be considered worthy in the New World Order. Could we be watching the rise of the mark of the beast right now? AI, global control, and the mark of the beast. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that without a digital ID, a specific chip, or a government-approved mark, you can't buy food, you can't sell anything, you can't access your money. Your entire existence is locked behind a system that dictates who is allowed to participate in society. Sounds extreme? Think again. Because right now, as we speak, this system is being built, and the Bible warned us about it thousands of years ago. Revelation 13:16-17 describes a time when he also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark. Many dismissed this prophecy for centuries, calling it symbolic, impossible. But look at the world now. Cash is disappearing. Governments are pushing digital currencies. Biometric systems are replacing traditional IDs. How long before participation in the economy requires something even more invasive? And then there's AI. Artificial intelligence is no longer just a tool. It's being woven into the very fabric of decision-making. It monitors financial transactions. It tracks behaviors. It can even determine who is trustworthy in the eyes of the system. If AI becomes the enforcer of global policies, who controls the AI? Because let's be honest, the people at the top aren't looking out for you. Nostradamus' cryptic warnings spoke of a time when people would be controlled not by kings or generals, but by an unseen force that dictates reality. Some believe he foresaw a digital empire, one where everything is monitored, and stepping out of line means exile from society. Sound familiar? Because China's social credit system already exists. If your score isn't high enough, you can't travel, get loans, or even access services. Now imagine that system on a global scale. And here's where it gets even darker. The World Economic Forum, United Nations, and other global entities are openly discussing a future where digital IDs, AI-driven governance, and centralized financial systems will ensure global stability. But what they call security, the Bible calls enslavement, because once the system is in place, there's no opting out. So where does this leave us? The Bible warns that accepting the mark of the beast isn't just about money, it's about allegiance. It's about choosing who you serve. And here's the hard truth. If you're not rooted in faith, it will be easy to justify giving in. It's just a chip. It's just a digital ID. It's just the way the world works now. Little compromises lead to ultimate deception. But let me ask you something. Do you really think this is all coincidence? That we're just advancing without a bigger agenda at play? Because right now, we have a choice. Wake up and prepare, or blindly follow the system until it's too late. So what do you think? Is the world heading straight into the prophecy of Revelation? Are we already seeing the early stages of global financial control? Let me know in the comments, because this next topic will shake you even more. Nostradamus and the Bible both warned about a war that would change everything. Could 2025 be the year it begins? World War III. Nostradamus and the Bible warn about a global conflict. A storm is brewing. You can see it in the news, feel it in the way nations interact. The tension is unbearable. One wrong move, one decision made by the wrong leader, and the world could be plunged into chaos. Wars have always been part of history, but what's happening now is different. The alliance is forming, the weapons being developed, the threats being exchanged. It's all leading to something bigger, something irreversible. Nostradamus and the Bible both warn of a great war, one that will change everything. Could 2025 be the year it begins? Nostradamus spoke of a great conflict between the East and the West, a war that would begin with small skirmishes but escalate into something apocalyptic. In one of his most chilling predictions, he wrote, "Fire from the sky in the new city, the great war will begin when the towers fall." A vague reference, or a horrifyingly accurate description of modern warfare, missile strikes, cyber attacks, and the potential for a nuclear escalation. Because if you've been paying attention, the world's most powerful nations are already preparing for something massive. The Bible has always warned of a time when wars and rumors of wars would shake the earth. Matthew 24:6-7. Jesus himself said, "Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom." And yet this isn't just a generic prophecy. It points to something bigger. The book of Revelation describes a final, catastrophic war that will engulf the world, involving armies from all nations, culminating in a massive battle in the Middle East, the infamous Battle of Armageddon, Revelation 16:16. And what about right now? Russia and NATO, China and Taiwan, Israel and the Middle East. The chess pieces are moving, and history has shown us that global wars don't start overnight. They build up, step by step, crisis by crisis, until suddenly we've crossed the point of no return. Could 2025 be that breaking point? Let's not ignore the financial aspect either. Wars are big business. Military spending is at an all-time high. Countries are stockpiling weapons. But here's the real issue. Modern war isn't just fought with bombs anymore. It's fought with cyber attacks, economic warfare, and control over resources. The Bible warns of a time when nations will rise, not just with weapons, but with deception and coercion. Daniel 8:23-25. And look at what's happening. Currencies being manipulated, food supplies controlled, and entire economies being crippled from the inside out. The battlefield isn't just land anymore, it's technology, finance, and control. And let's not forget about nuclear threats. Nostradamus wrote about a fire that would consume cities, leaving nothing but ash. Could this be a prediction of nuclear war? The world's most powerful leaders have access to weapons that could wipe out entire populations in seconds. And yet, those same leaders are making reckless decisions, inching closer and closer to the ultimate mistake. So what happens next? Is war inevitable? If Nostradamus was right, if the Bible's prophecies are unfolding before our eyes, then the world as we know it is about to change forever. But here's the thing, God is still in control. No war, no nation, no leader can override his plan. The question isn't just, will war come? The real question is, are you spiritually prepared for what's coming? What do you think? Are we on the brink of a third world war? Have you noticed how quickly things are escalating? Let me know in the comments. Because if you think war is the biggest sign of the end, wait until you see what role Israel and the Middle East play in all of this. The Bible has been warning us about it from the very beginning. The role of Israel and the Middle East in the end times. If you want to understand the end times, look at Israel. The Bible makes it clear. This tiny nation is the key to everything. World wars, economic shifts, global power struggles, they all lead back to one place. And that's not just a theory. Nostradamus predicted it. The Bible foretold it. And right now, in real time, it's happening. Since its rebirth in 1948, Israel has been at the center of global conflict, political manipulation, and religious division. But that's no coincidence. In Zechariah 12:3, God declares, "On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock. All who try to move it will injure themselves." And look at today's world. Almost every major conflict ties back to Israel and the Middle East. Nostradamus also wrote about a great war that would ignite from a Middle Eastern conflict, a war that would begin small but spiral into something catastrophic. And right now, tensions are rising. Israel and Iran, Israel and Palestine, US involvement, Russian alliances. The pieces are moving, and history tells us that major wars don't start in a day. They build over time, until suddenly everything ignites. And let's talk about prophecy. The Bible predicts that in the last days a leader will broker a peace deal involving Israel, Daniel 9:27. But here's the terrifying part, that peace won't last. It will be a deception, setting the stage for global chaos. The world will believe that a new era of stability has arrived, only to be blindsided when war, destruction, and totalitarian control follow. Is 2025 the year we see this peace begin? What's even more unsettling is how Israel's spiritual significance ties into all of this. The Bible warns that when the end is near, Israel will be surrounded by enemies, abandoned by allies, and forced to stand alone. Ezekiel 38:39. Think about it. Who is truly standing with Israel right now? Alliances are shifting. Nations that once supported Israel are pulling away. Could this be the setup for what the Bible calls the Battle of Gog and Magog, a war where Russia, Iran, and other nations unite to invade Israel? And let's not forget the Third Temple. Prophecy states that a new temple will be built in Jerusalem before the return of Christ, 2 Thessalonians 2:4, Daniel 9:27. This isn't speculation, it's in motion. Temple plans exist. Red heifers have been prepared for sacrifice. Religious leaders in Israel are openly discussing the timeline for its construction. If the Third Temple is built, it's not just another religious event. It's a direct fulfillment of prophecy. So here's the real question. Why does the entire world care about Israel? A country smaller than New Jersey holds the attention of every global superpower, every major religion, and every government strategist. This isn't just politics, this is prophecy unfolding. So what do you think? Is Israel standing on the edge of something biblical? Have you noticed how the world's focus keeps returning to Jerusalem? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because what happens next is even more terrifying. The Bible speaks of a great tribulation, a time unlike anything the world has ever seen. Could 2025 be the beginning of this dark era? The Great Tribulation. Will it begin in 2025? Imagine a world where everything collapses at once, wars spreading across continents, economies crumbling beyond repair, famine devouring entire nations. A leader rising with all the answers, only to reveal his true, sinister purpose when it's too late. The Bible calls this period the Great Tribulation, the darkest time in human history. Could 2025 mark the beginning of this apocalyptic era? Jesus himself warned about this time in Matthew 24:21, "For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again." That is a terrifying statement. It means no war, no plague, no disaster in history will compare to what's coming. And if we examine the world today, it feels as though everything is aligning for something catastrophic. The Bible states that the Great Tribulation will last 7 years and will be marked by global deception. A world leader will emerge, promising peace, but leading humanity into chaos. Mass persecution, Christians and those who resist the system will be hunted down. Total control. A one-world government will enforce the mark of the beast, preventing people from buying or selling without it. Revelation 13:16-17. Unnatural disasters, earthquakes, famines, and cosmic disturbances will shake the world. The wrath of God, judgments will be poured out upon a rebellious generation. Some scholars believe the tribulation officially begins when a 7-year peace treaty involving Israel is signed. Daniel 9:27. Could this happen in 2025? With rising tensions in the Middle East, world leaders desperate for stability, and global organizations pushing for unity, we may be closer than we realize. And here is where things become even more unsettling. The world is already being conditioned to accept it. Morality is being rewritten. What was once considered wrong is now celebrated. What was once sacred is now ridiculed. Authoritarian control is growing. Governments are restricting freedoms in the name of safety and progress. Traditional values are under attack. Family, faith, and truth are being systematically dismantled. But here is the greatest deception. The tribulation will not look like suffering at first. It will appear as progress, a new age of prosperity, technology, and global cooperation. People will believe they are entering a golden era. But underneath it all will be a system of absolute control, a war against faith, and a direct rebellion against God. So where does that leave you? If 2025 is the beginning of the Great Tribulation, then time is running out. Because once this period begins, there will be no going back. The world as we know it will never exist again. What do you think? Are we witnessing the beginning of this prophecy? Are the signs around us pointing to something much bigger? Let me know in the comments. Because if the tribulation is near, then something even more incredible must be coming. Could the return of Jesus Christ be closer than we ever imagined? Is the return of Christ near? This is the moment everything has been leading to. Wars, disasters, deception, and a world spiraling out of control. But if the darkness is increasing, it only means one thing. The greatest event in human history is closer than ever, the return of Jesus Christ. The Bible makes it clear he will come back not as a suffering servant, but as a conquering king. The only question is, how close are we to that day? Acts 1:11 records the promise given to the disciples. This same Jesus, who has been taken from you into heaven, will come back in the same way you have seen him go into heaven. The return of Christ is not symbolic. It is not a metaphor. It is a literal physical event that will shake the entire world. And based on the signs around us, it may be closer than we think. Jesus himself laid out the signs of his return in Matthew 24. Wars, earthquakes, deception, lawlessness, and an increase in wickedness. He warned that these things would happen like birth pains, growing more frequent and intense as the time approached. Look around. That is exactly what we are seeing. The world is not getting better. It is unraveling at a speed no one can control. And then there is the prophecy of 1 Thessalonians 4:16-17, which speaks of the moment when Christ will return for his people. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. This is what many call the rapture, the sudden removal of believers before the worst of the tribulation unfolds. Could this moment be closer than we ever imagined? What makes this so urgent is that the world is perfectly positioned for these events to unfold. The deception is already here. The technology for control is in place. The spiritual blindness is at an all-time high. People are distracted, disconnected from truth, and comfortable with compromise, exactly as the Bible predicted. But here is the warning Jesus gave in Matthew 24:44. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. That means this is not just about watching for signs. It is about being prepared. Many people will be caught off guard, living life as if nothing is happening, unaware that the most important moment in history is about to take place. So here is the question: are you ready? Because the truth is, it does not matter when Christ is coming back if you are not prepared for him. Whether it is 2025 or years beyond, the urgency remains the same. The world is running out of time, but you still have a choice. Do you believe the return of Christ is near? Have you seen the signs increasing around you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Because if Jesus is coming soon, then there is one last thing we need to talk about: how to prepare for what is coming. How to prepare for what's coming. If everything we've discussed is true, if the world is hurtling toward prophetic fulfillment, if deception is rising, if war, economic collapse, and a global control system are already forming, then the most important question is this: what do you do about it? Because warnings mean nothing if you are not prepared. First and foremost, spiritual preparation is everything. The Bible makes it clear: no amount of wealth, power, or survival skills will protect you from what is coming. The only real safety is in God. Psalm 91:2 says, "I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust." That means putting your trust in Jesus Christ is not just an option. It is the only way to truly be secure, no matter what happens in the world. But preparation is not just spiritual, it is practical too. Proverbs 22:3 warns, "The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty." That means wisdom requires action. That might look different for each person, but some things are undeniable. Financial preparation, the economy is fragile, and dependence on unstable systems is dangerous. Find ways to generate income that do not rely entirely on centralized control. Look into investments, entrepreneurship, and sources of passive income that can withstand global instability. Food and resource preparation. Supply chain disruptions have already shown us how quickly essentials can vanish. Stocking up on food, water, and basic necessities is not paranoia, it is wisdom. Mental and physical preparation. A collapsing world brings stress, fear, and instability. Taking care of your mental and physical health now ensures you are not vulnerable when things get worse. Exercise, strengthen your mindset, and build resilience. And then there is community. In times of crisis, isolation is a trap. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 reminds us, "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up." Surrounding yourself with like-minded people, those who see the signs and are preparing, can be the difference between survival and disaster. But here is the most important part. Preparation does not mean fear. That is where many people get it wrong. This is not about panicking. It is about being wise, alert, and ready. Because here's the truth. No matter how bad things get, God is still in control. The Bible is clear. This world is not our final destination. The chaos we see is temporary. The pain we feel is passing. What is coming next is far greater than anything we can imagine. So let me ask you, how are you preparing? Have you taken these warnings seriously, or have you been hoping things will go back to normal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because the biggest mistake anyone can make right now is to ignore the signs. And speaking of signs, how many of these prophecies are real and how many have been twisted to manipulate the masses? Are we being deceived? Let's break it down. Prophecies and manipulation. Are we being deceived? Let's be honest, fear sells. It has been used for centuries to control, manipulate, and push people towards certain beliefs, behaviors, and decisions. Every time a global crisis happens, you hear it. The end is near. But here's the real question. How do we know which prophecies are true and which are being twisted to serve an agenda? The Bible itself warns us about false prophets and deception in the last days. Matthew 24:24 states, "For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect." That means not every prophecy, every warning, or every prediction is from God. Some are designed to create panic, to shift power, to gain influence, and that's exactly what we see happening today. Think about it. How many times have people claimed a specific date for the end of the world? How many times have predictions been used to push political control, financial gain, or religious dominance? Nostradamus' writings have been interpreted in countless ways, often molded to fit whatever narrative is trending at the time. And while biblical prophecy is clear, many have twisted its meaning for personal gain. And let's talk about the media. Fear drives attention, attention drives profits. Governments, corporations, and even religious institutions have used fear to gain control. They want people to be afraid because fear makes them easier to manipulate. That's why we have to ask, are these warnings leading us to the truth, or are they distractions meant to control us? But here's the flip side. Just because some prophecies have been misused doesn't mean the real ones should be ignored. That's the mistake many make. They assume that because there have been false alarms, all prophecy must be false. But the Bible warns us repeatedly, the deception will increase right before the real event happens. That means the noise, the misinformation, the manipulation. It's all a setup to make people stop paying attention to the real signs. So how do you tell the difference? Biblical truth over speculation. If a prophecy does not align with the Bible, it is false, period. The Bible is the foundation, not vague predictions or internet theories. Fear versus wisdom. True prophecy warns, but it does not create panic. Fear-driven manipulation leads to control, while true wisdom leads to preparation and faith. Who benefits? If a prophecy is pushing you toward fear, financial schemes, or blind loyalty to an individual or institution, question it. Truth is not about control, it is about revelation. Here's the bottom line. The greatest deception isn't just believing a false prophecy, it's ignoring the truth because of too many lies. That's exactly what the enemy wants. He wants people so overwhelmed with misinformation that they stop seeking the truth altogether. So what do you think? Are we being misled? Have you noticed how prophecy has been used to manipulate rather than to reveal truth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Because now we have to ask the final question, the one that changes everything. Are we actually in the end, or is this just the beginning of a massive shift? Are we at the end, or just in a great shift? After everything we've explored, the wars, the global control systems, the financial collapse, the deception, and the prophecies, one question remains. Is this truly the end, or are we simply witnessing a massive transformation? Because let's be honest, the world isn't just breaking, it's changing. And change always brings uncertainty. Throughout history, every generation has believed they were the last. Wars have raged, empires have fallen, economies have collapsed, and yet the world kept moving forward. So what makes this time different? What makes 2025 more significant than any other global crisis? The difference is the speed, the rapid acceleration of technological control, the moral decline, the global unity pushing toward a single system. Things that once took decades to develop are happening in months, and the Bible warned that when the end comes, it will happen quickly. But here's where many people get it wrong. The end of an era is not the end of the world. The world has gone through massive shifts before, from the fall of Rome to the Industrial Revolution, from global wars to economic resets. Each time, society was reshaped, but history did not stop. That raises an important question. Are we standing at the final prophetic moment before the return of Christ, or are we simply at the beginning of a new, controlled world order? The Bible gives us two possibilities. Scenario 1. The end is here. If we are truly at the threshold of the Great Tribulation, then everything we have discussed is leading toward the fulfillment of the final biblical prophecies. The return of Christ is imminent, and there is no turning back. Scenario 2. This is a precursor to the end. If this is just a global shift, then we are heading into a time of increased control, financial resets, and a world that looks more like Revelation, but without fully crossing into the final 7 years. That would mean there is still time before the final prophetic clock begins. Either way, the message remains the same. The world will never return to what it was. Whether this is the final moment before the end or just the beginning of something massive, one truth is undeniable. The only security in an uncertain world is in God. The Bible is not about fear. It is about preparation. And preparation is not about hoarding resources or running away. It is about positioning yourself spiritually, mentally, and physically for whatever comes next. Because whether Christ returns tomorrow or years from now, one fact is clear: we are closer than ever. So what do you think? Are we truly at the end, or are we entering a major global reset? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because the conversation isn't over, this is only the beginning of something bigger. And if you want to understand exactly how to navigate what's coming, you won't want to miss what's next. Everything we've talked about, prophecies, global shifts, deception, control, war, and collapse, leads to one inescapable truth. Change is happening, and it's happening fast. Whether we are at the final moments of history or just in the beginning of a massive transformation, one thing is clear: nothing will ever be the same again. But here's the real question. What will you do with this knowledge? Because it's easy to hear these things, to recognize the warning signs, and then go right back to life as usual. That's exactly what the enemy wants, to keep people distracted, comfortable, and unprepared. But you are not meant to be asleep. The Bible warns that the world will be caught off guard when these events unfold. But those who are awake will not be surprised. 1 Thessalonians 5:4-6. That means this is not the time for fear. It is the time for action. It is the time to strengthen your faith, prepare wisely, and make sure you are standing on the right side of history. Because no government, no economy, no leader, and no amount of money can protect you from what's coming. This is bigger than politics, bigger than economies, bigger than conspiracies or predictions. This is a spiritual war, and the real battle is not just about world events, it's about the souls of billions of people who are being led straight into deception. So where do you stand? Will you be one of the people who wake up and prepare? Or will you be like the world, distracted, indifferent, and caught off guard when it's too late? If this video opened your eyes, if you believe people need to hear this message, make sure to share this with someone who needs to wake up. And if you want to go deeper into these topics, into how to prepare spiritually, financially, and mentally for what's coming, you do not want to miss the next video on this channel. Click on it now, because what you are about to learn next will change everything.